Jeff with History Hunters, coming with another episode of kind of forgotten history. Let's think back to World War II. The technology back then, we were still fighting combat by air, and one of the greatest heroes of World War II was a man by the name of Richard Ira Bong.
Major Richard Bong of Poplar, Wisconsin, who became the leading American ace with 40 combat victories.
He was a pilot with the United States Army Air Corps. We didn't have an Air Force back then. It was a precursor to the Air Force. In his P-38 warplane, he was able to shoot down 40 Japanese aircraft between August 1942 and August of 1944, and for that he got the Medal of Honor. It was presented by Douglas MacArthur, the general himself.
On the afternoon of December 12, 1944, in front of a Guard of Honor consisting of 12 pilots, each of whom had 12 or more air combat victories, General Douglas MacArthur pinned the coveted Medal of Honor on Major Richard Bong.
You would think of all the places Bong would have died, it would have been maybe fighting combat in the South Pacific. Actually, he died right here. I'm going to tell you all about it on this episode of History Hunters. I'm actually here at Riverton and Oxnard Streets, not too far from the Valhalla Memorial Park, outside of Burbank, California. In fact, I just heard one of the planes take off of Burbank International Airport. I doubt if anybody in this area of Burbank, California knows exactly what happened here in August of 1945. Now, you would have thought that the death of Major Bong right here at this location would have been major news at the time, and it was to a degree. But it's what happened that day that kind of overshadowed it. The United States had just dropped the atomic bomb on Japan, which stole all the headlines away from Major Bong. So maybe that's why it was kind of forgotten. I'm really curious why they haven't turned this into a park, because I saw other sections of Burbank that had this same electric lines going through it, and they actually made a green space park out of it. That's not the case.
Richard Ira Bong was born on September 24, 1920, as the first of 9 children of Carl Bong, a Swedish immigrant, and Dora Bryce. Richard Bong grew up on a farm outside of Poplar, Wisconsin, raised in a loving family. His sisters reported that President Calvin Coolidge's choice of setting up a summer White House on Lake Superior at nearby Superior, Wisconsin in 1928 is what inspired Bong to become a pilot. They explained that for weeks a military plane would fly directly over the Bong farm, taking mail to and from the lodge where Coolidge and First Lady Grace Coolidge were staying. When he heard the plane's engine coming every day, the boy would search the skies and marvel at the machine overhead and knew that he wanted to fly one. Coincidentally, I happened to own one of Coolidge's letters, which was signed and flown over the Bong farm at the end of their summer experience. After attending Poplar High School and later graduating from Central High School in Superior in 1938, Dick enrolled in the civilian pilot training program and also took private flying lessons. On May 29, 1941, he enlisted in the Army Air Corps Aviation Cadet Program, and one of his flight instructors was Captain Barry Goldwater, the future U.S. Senator from Arizona and presidential candidate.
So after Major Bong surpassed Eddie Rickenbacker's World War I kill of 26 aircraft with 40 aircraft, he was a war hero. He was celebrated in the press as a great World War II hero. America was very proud of this Midwestern boy who accomplished some pretty amazing things if you think about it. Just taking down one aircraft, but 40 aircraft in a 2-year period. He was a star.
Major Richard Bong returned home on leave and was hailed in the press and newsreels as the true American hero.
Well, folks, it's a very happy day for me to be back here on this Mother's Day, to be along with my mother and the mothers of these 2 other boys. It'll be a much better day all around when we can get all the mothers of all the boys back together again when this thing is over.
He made appearances sometimes with celebrities like Bing Crosby here to raise money for the war effort. He was warmly greeted by the folks in Poplar who knew him in his growing up years, and the youngsters who were in awe of meeting him. Just by chance, he happened to meet a young school teacher at the local cafe who was also an admirer. Marjorie Ann Battendahl became his wife on February 10, 1945, and the couple became instant media darlings. As much as they wanted a simple wedding, that was not meant to be. 1,300 people were lined up outside to enter the church, and newsreel men and magazine reporters were also anxious to get their own glimpses of the biggest wedding Superior had ever seen. Dick and Marge excluded all press for the official wedding, but would reenact the whole thing 3 more times for the press.
His wife was also kind of a sought-after media star because her image and her name was on the nose of that plane. So Ira Bong suggested that she was the most sought-after woman in World War II. So she kind of capitalized on that fame.
Tragically, the marriage would be short-lived. After serving 3 combat tours flying the Lockheed P-38 Lightning in the Southwest Pacific, Bong took an assignment as an Air Force acceptance test pilot for the new Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star jet fighter at the Lockheed Air Terminal in Burbank. The P-80A was a brand new jet fighter, and as of August 6, 1945, Major Bong had flown 12 flights that only totaled 4 hours and 15 minutes in the plane.
I can hear those electric line buzzing. So shortly after takeoff, the primary fuel pump for the turbojet engine failed, and a backup fuel pump was not turned on. Bong's plane started rolling upside down, and Bong bailed out, but he was actually too low. The jet hit the ground and exploded right in this area. Now, I understand that somebody was living in the houses over here. The jet plane flew right over the house. They thought it was going to hit that house, but it ended up crashing right out here.
This newspaper article suggested Richard Bong was a hero in his last moments. This from the article. From the accounts of these witnesses and others, it became increasingly apparent that Major Bong, realizing that the plane and perhaps himself were doomed, desperately and heroically strove to clear housetops in the vicinity to crash in the open field and thus spare injury to others. The newspaper also reported that a woman standing in her backyard about 150 feet away received burns on her legs for which she received treatment. The newspaper also mentioned that one witness said the plane, hurtling through the air at terrific speed, flew between a lane of telephone wires and a lane of high-tension wires without touching either.
Pretty amazing that his plane did not hit those high power lines, which would have made things a lot worse, cutting off electricity for everything. But it's also amazing he missed those houses back there, which would have resulted in more casualties and probably some major damage to that neighborhood over there. So sometimes you can't always believe what you read in the newspapers. One lady said that you saw Major Bong somehow getting out of the aircraft and then dying. However, the actual report says that he tried to parachute out. I'm sure that he had an ejection seat. He was too low to the ground, popped up out of the plane, and he hit the ground and he died. So he would have been dead. There was no getting out of the plane and moving around. Major Bong probably died instantly. Unfortunately, the plane burst into flames, and I don't know if his body was burned, but it's a good possibility that it was. So after Richard Bong had been killed, of course, Marge was widowed. So they had no children. Later in life, she remarried, went back to Poplar, Wisconsin.
The funeral for Major Bong was held at the Concordia Lutheran Church in Superior, Wisconsin, the same church where he and Marge had married months earlier. His flag-draped coffin was transported to the Poplar Cemetery, where he is at rest. He was posthumously inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame in 1986 and has several commemorative monuments named in his honor around the world, including an airport, 2 bridges, a theater, a Veterans Historical Center, a recreation area, a neighborhood terrace, and the street leading to the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. Marge was proud to see the opening of the Richard I. Bong World War II Heritage Center in Superior and the restoration of the P-38 Lightning, the type of plane that made Bong famous. Marge had remarried twice in her life and died in 2003.
So I'm just walking around the perimeter of this area here. Definitely don't want you trespassing here. Department of Power and Water. So it would have been right about there. I'm thinking it's between the road and between those two first towers there. I want to add a little commentary because I've been in Southern California for a couple of days, and I've been through some areas of Southern California, Burbank, Hollywood, and I got to tell you, you have to wonder about where society's going, because there's so much squalor, there's so much homelessness, drug use, just trashiness. I mean, I don't think you had that back in the greatest generation. I wonder today if we would survive a challenge that Japan and Germany presented to us back in World War II. If that happened today, would this generation rise to the challenge?
Major Richard Bong, representative of the highest type of young Americans who served their country.
I had a conversation with a friend. We were talking about how just the homelessness and just how things look in Los Angeles is probably indicative of how society's going. Just the prevalent drug use that's causing so many people to fail. And I think it's really sad. And I'm concerned about our country. Los Angeles used to be a lot classier place. It's sad because it's such a beautiful area. Now, there is beautiful areas of Southern California, don't get me wrong. But you have to wonder at times if so many people should be in such a tight space. I mean, piling people on top of people on top of people. I saw that they were building more condos. And I mean, how many more people can you put in a tight area? And then if something bad happens, like an earthquake, I want to thank you for joining us on another episode of History Hunters. I don't know if you knew anything about Major Bong. There should be like some kind of monument here dedicated to Richard Bong, telling people about what happened here. I think it's important that we remember our history, don't you? Leave a comment, give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to History Hunters, we would definitely love to have you as a subscriber, and it doesn't cost a thing. Thanks so much.